my first
Yeah.
contract was 3 years, 900,000, and to try to budget that money throughout the year, like that was difficult for me to do. That was difficult for me to kind of grasp and understand. Hey, we got 17 weeks.
Welcome to another episode of your favorite podcast, Behind the Pro. In this episode, I had a chance to sit down with two former NFL greats, Fred Robbins and Desmond Clark, plus financial guru to the pros, Pai Charasika. We had a chance to talk about the business of being a professional athlete, making the transition from on the field to off the field success, plus much more. Take a listen, don't forget to share, and let's go Behind the Pro. Hey guys, it's good to have you. Appreciate you guys coming in and jumping on the podcast. And we're going to have a great time conversation here on Behind the Pro podcast. So I want to start first. We got some NFL vets here. We got a financial vet here. So we're going to talk about pros in a lot of different ways. So what better way to start than talking with some friends of mine? And we're going to start with Desmond. You played multiple years in the NFL. You have a successful logistics business. You went to one of the best schools in the country. How were you able to all of that?
Well, first of all, let's just go back to your intro and say that you got some friends on this podcast. Let's use that term very lightly because I don't know where this podcast is going to go, and I don't want to be linked to any type of crimes or anything by people saying that I'm associating with the wrong individual. And I'm only talking about you, Kevin Smith.
That's where we're going.
Cool here. But back to the question that you posed. That, man, you know what? It's a lot of hard work. That's what it comes down to: hard work and focus. When I say hard work, it's more focus than hard work, right? I don't think anything that I did was hard. Like, it was like, oh my God, I think I'm gonna die. I mean, the work to stay in the NFL and to work out and do that type of stuff, it's challenging, right? But it's not hard to build a company. It's challenging, but there's not one thing, like one component that you look at and say, man, that's gonna be so hard for me to do. It's just a lot of individual components that you have to put all together and be focused on and make sure that all of those things are coming together. So if I would say how I was able to get to Wake Forest and play at Wake Forest and then play in the NFL and then build a company, is really having to focus on making all of those little pieces work and just being dedicated to making those things work.
Now, Fred, you and I are roommates. We go way back, just like with Desmond and Pi. And I've watched you.
So
See,
Fred,
here we go.
Fred is his friend.
So, Fred, why we have our other associates on here? Man, you went to Wake Forest from Pensacola, Florida. Then you also went on to the NFL. You played for some great coaches. And you and I talked earlier about the hard part once you get to the NFL is when you take the pads off and it's the things outside of the game. As you started your transition from college to pros, what are some of the things that you noticed were the biggest difference? But also when you transition from the NFL ranks to now having a successful nonprofit, also a successful training business, how were you able to make those transitions?
I think growing up and what Coach Caldwell instilled us at Wake Forest, man, just kind of you utilizing the tools that we've learned throughout our career. Being a good teammate, being a good sportsmanship, knowing when it's your time, knowing when to cheer other people on, even though your time is not there yet. You know what I mean? But I think what Des alluded to was just being consistent. We all play with guys who were probably more talented than we were, but the fact that we were able to do things at a more consistent level and a more consistent time, that's one of the keys that that kept me around the NFL or got me to that to that environment. And like we spoke earlier, the hardest part is just the lifestyle of an NFL player. You know what I mean? We played football our life growing up, but now when the business of football come involved, that you got to stay on top of. You know what I mean? Like the pies, having a financial advisor. You know what I mean? So much that you have to learn how to do on your own. Whereas in college, it's pretty much like, hey, you want to take these classes, you go to your academic advisor. You know what I mean? Like everything is pretty much kind of there for you for someone else to do. But now when you make that transition, to the pros, now it falls on you, right? Coming in at a young age, that you're coming into a world where there's a lot of professional people, right? And it's the business side, it's the scheme side of things. You know what I mean? Where you can take advantage of early because those people have been doing this for so much longer than you, right? You have to trust people early early on. You don't have a lot of time to earn trust with, some people. So you really just got to stay involved with everything and just kind of use those keys and tools that you use growing up your whole life.
Hey, and just to piggyback
Now,
on
Pai,
that, Fred, one of
go
the
ahead,
things
Des.
one of the things that happened, me and Fred had the same agent, and you talked about trust, right?
Yeah.
He went with the same agent, and I went with the same agent that my brother's best friend went with to help guide our careers, right? So it was good that somebody led that way that I could trust, and then since I was able to trust him, Fred was able to trust him. So man, that's very important. That what Fred said is just having that trust, especially with having somebody guiding your career.
Exactly.
Hey, Des and Fred, y'all make great points about trust and having the right people around you. And, Pai Charasika, you also had a transition from college to pro, but your pro, you went into financial management and advising. Now, the audience, you hear so much about the role of a financial advisor in a professional athlete's life. What's the real role of a financial advisor? Is it do you really just pay bills and put money in a mutual fund? Like, what do you really do for a professional athlete?
I mean, first of all, I'm very lucky and happy to be here with you all, man. I mean, you all might have been roommates, but Des and I were position mates. So we spent many days in that freaking breakout room.
Bobby K.
And Kennedy yell at me. a lot. And before him, it was Barisi I had yelling at me. So just to have this chance to get back with y'all is awesome. And so my pro career has gone a totally different direction, obviously. I didn't have the fortune to do that. I'm a little bit shorter too, so that didn't help me at all. But nonetheless, I mean, both points they've made are exactly on target. It's, baby stepping the whole thing and taking these little bitty tasks to build out and having the determination and the will to kind of power through those things. And then learning from everybody else around me. Like when I left college, I thought I wanted to get into sports broadcast. I wasn't even sure that I wanted to go into being a financial advisor. Serendipity and a lot of life's passes kind of took me in the direction where I ended up being in banking at the very start of my career. And then ultimately, I hated banking, but I still loved working with people. I loved working with their finances. And so ultimately, I studied for my Series 7 and the rest was history. So I've been doing this for the last 24 years. But to really answer your question, it's not just, hey, let me build out your budget for you. Hey, let me look at your finances. It's understanding the person sitting across the table from you in terms of what their passion and purpose is and what they truly want to get out of life, and then trying to build a blueprint for that to give them the right sense of direction. Because any day I can buy XYZ stock for you and have that take care of a couple of things. But ideally what I'm trying to do is get people to fulfill their passion and purpose. And a lot of times we're able to do that more freely when we've got financial freedom. So we talk about financial freedom as having passive income that exceeds your expenses. That's just one formula we use for that. And if I can get you to that, where you can actually live the way you want and do the things you want to do, then we're doing pretty well. But that's really where I start, is trying to define what that is for each individual and go from there.
Now, Des and Fred, will you kind of paint a picture for the audience of, from your perspective, what should a player's relationship with their financial advisor be?
Well, first of all, they should have a relationship.
Yeah. I mean, I just think you got to have, just like you have a relationship with anybody, you know what I mean? But a lot of times, guys use the excuse, well, I don't have time for that. I just put that trust, into a financial advisor, and it's kind of like, it's some good ones, just some bad ones. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If you don't seem interested in it, then I'm not going to seem interested in it. You know what I mean? So it's kind of just like coaching. You know what I mean? If you don't ask a lot of questions to a coach, and you don't seem interested, like you want to play or you want to be knowledgeable better, you know what I mean? How much time and effort is he's going to put into you? You know what I mean? So, but I think that's part of that transition period. We're not used to hearing that. We're not used to dealing with that. You know what I mean? Especially coming out of college. Now you have to make those steps. You have to make those transitions. You know what I mean? And a lot of guys just at times don't realize that's part of the game. They get so focused on the X's and the O's, they just don't understand about, okay, this is your livelihood. You know what I mean? And when you come in, guys not really thinking about families and in college tuition or how to set my myself up. They're always thinking, hey, I'm gonna play forever. You know what I mean? And things can happen wrong if you don't take advantage of it.
Right. And coming into the league, you're 21, 22, 23 years old, right? So you're still young. You're still coming out of just being a kid, right? And trying to get into adulthood. And you're not thinking about family because most people don't have a family at that point. So it takes some growing into over the course of time. But I've been on both sides of that. I was actually a financial advisor too. And to what Pai was saying, what a financial advisor should doing is helping you build your life financially. And when an athlete can actually see that vision, hey, I'm here to help you build your life financially, and you have a head start. Like you're already on the 70-yard line or on the other side. Let's just say the 50-yard line because there ain't no damn 70-yard line. You're on the 30-yard line on the other side of the field. That's what I should have said. But you're already in an advantageous place, right? And if the young people, which I didn't get it when I was young, so I can't blame somebody else if they don't get it when they were young, to understand that somebody is here. If you'll listen and pick the right person and listen, you're in prime position to live your entire life after you play 4 or 5 years in the NFL, however you want to, if you do it the right way. If you just sacrifice for a few years and let your money build up over a few years, you can live exactly how you want to forever.
That's the biggest challenge right there, that sacrifice piece. Like when I've talked to so many guys, and Fred just made that point. It's like when you're really young, I can try and educate these guys all I want, but they're keeping up with the Joneses. They want the next new house. They want the next new car. I got my friends want to start this CBD company. What about this restaurant over here? How about we do? And there's so many different distractions that take your money slowly but surely. And next thing you know, you've been in this league 5-7 years, right? And now it's done. And it's like, where do you go? We didn't put anything away extra than what, we were going to get from our pension. We had things that we needed to take a look at earlier on, just from an education standpoint. It just never happened. And I think that sometimes they have opportunities for that, but the willingness to actually trust in someone is probably a little bit different animal. So I try to focus on the education component the most. First of all, I got to like who I'm working with, right? Like you got to like me first. You got to know that there's a relationship there. Fred and I have a rapport, Des and I have a rapport, you and I have a rapport. Like if we didn't have that, like I don't even, like that's half the battle. And so do I like you first?
And Pai, here's the other thing, man. Like sometimes people can be trying to do the right thing. I was a person that was trying to do the right thing. I was trying to be a businessman when I didn't have time to be a businessman. And so I invested in a bunch of stuff that I lost that because I wasn't knowledgeable enough and I didn't have the time to oversee it. And I didn't understand what the hell I was doing, but I was trying to do the right thing. Like I didn't buy a bunch of cars and houses and stuff like this, but I did sink hundreds of thousands of dollars into trying to start up businesses like you said, hey, restaurant, the CBD, the this and that. Mine was landscaping and a recording studio and all kind of stuff like that. And now I look back on and I say, if I would let that money sit, right? And we're talking probably close to 7 figures that I've tried to invest into businesses over the course of time. If I would just let that money sit for 10 years or 12 years throughout my career, now we're looking at double, triple that now.
Probably.
And now that I have the time to be a businessman, I can go out and study and do the things that I need to do. But it's like you said, it's that sacrifice. And I'm going to say that mine was greed, but not in a way that I was trying to buy up stuff. I just wanted to make my money. I wanted to deploy my money and make more money. And that's why I got into bad investments also, because, oh man, you can guarantee me 24%? What? Oh, here's $750,000. 3 years later, Ponzi scheme.
Right. And given that I've had 25 years, 24 years of experience in it, doing it enough times to see what works and what doesn't work, hopefully you allow me the opportunity to kind of navigate those waters with you, for you, on your behalf, et cetera, and be like, hey, look, last time we had a buddy do this restaurant, this is the experience we had. Or here's what we need to do here in order to structure your business the right way. But there's trust in that, right? So, that's probably the biggest aspects of this, like where I went from being just a basic financial advisor to being a pro, to answer your question, is again, trying to figure out people's purpose and passions, developing that relationship even more so to where they trusted my abilities to get where they wanted to go. All right. And then I just navigate the ship. So that's been the biggest catalyst for my success so far. And what I continue to try and do is I mentor people through the process.
Yeah.
So Fred and Des, you got into the league. What was that first check like? And what did you guys do with it?
Go ahead, Fred. I'll let you tell your story.
Where she at? What nursing school she get into?
So y'all know I was already married. So
yeah.
I wasn't at that.
I'm
Well,
trying to get people in trouble out here.
Stefan's
man
gonna
got a
edit
wife
that
and
out. He's
family
gonna
over
edit
there.
that out.
Hey, you over there dry snitching right now, Kevin.
allegedly,
I'm saying allegedly.
I was chatting with some buddies, I think earlier in the week about the process, and I'm glad that I went to like a Minneapolis first. You know what I mean? Wasn't, like quite like a New York, Miami, but it was just good enough for me to get my feet wet to kind of learn the ropes a little bit. You know what I mean? Minneapolis wasn't as flashy as, like in New York. So my process going to Minneapolis first when I got my check was, I was happy, excited. That's what you work hard for, right? But the draft process happened so fast. Like you get drafted, and, you're playing, you got to go to mini camp and everything. But, I came home and I took care of my mom and dad. You know what I mean? That was the first thing I did. I came back home and told them, hey, that's it. You know what I mean? No more job, no more working for you. They sacrificed so much for me. That was my biggest payback. And, my first 4 years, season I stayed with my parents. I didn't buy a house until my 5th year in the league. You know what I mean? I just had a place in Minneapolis, a condo where I was staying at during the season. But outside of that, man, I stayed with my folks, for 4 years, in the off season, but they gave me a chance to really kind of enjoy my life, get my feet wet, with the NFL. You know what I mean? I don't know how far in depth you want me to go with this story.
That's enough, because at some point you're going to involve me. So, Des, as a married, loyal man going into the league, what did you do with your first check?
Why you got to say it like that?
I'm just putting the truth out there. Go ahead.
You saying like you suspicious or something.
Suspicious?
So mine was different from Fred. Fred got drafted in the 2nd round, so Fred got that big money. Fred got at least 6 figures, maybe 7 figures. I don't know what 2nd round money looked like. So I had that end.
It ain't what it is now. It ain't what it is now.
Oh, hell no. No. 2nd round, definitely getting 7 figures now. But I had that end of the 6th round money. So my check was 60 grand. And I thought I was rich as hell. I ain't never seen 60 grand before. But that's what they told me. Hold on, let me back up. They told me I was going to get 60 grand. The shock of my life is when I got that check, and that check said 35,000, whatever, something cents. I'm like, what the? Hold on. I thought I was supposed to be getting 60 grand. This is way short of 60, way short. And so I started reading over the check. I went to Wake Forest so I could read. I could put stuff together. I discovered who FICA was. I looked it up. FICA, federal income. What? Like, hold on. That much? Hold on. Social Security. I'm 22 years old. I don't get Social Security. I didn't understand that I got to pay Social Security and then state tax on. Like, what? Like, y'all just took half of my damn check. So that was my experience when, man, I'm getting a $60,000 signing bonus. I'm rich. And then, but I'm not even gonna lie. Even when I got over the shock that it was $35,000 and some odd dollars, I was still rich. I couldn't go buy my house or nothing like that, but I did go buy myself a nice vehicle. I think it was a Ford Expedition that I went and bought myself. I didn't have a car, so that was my first purchase. And I didn't buy it outright. I made payments on that joker because I wanted that $35,000 to last for a little while.
Yeah,
that's a nice check. My first salary in my first job wasn't even $35,000, so I couldn't take care of my parents then. But I got a nice mug. So
and point, Des, I think that's what a lot of guys get in trouble too, Des. Like you said, you got 60 grand on paper. Say, oh, you signed for X amount of years for 60 grand. Guys in their head budget 60 grand, not understanding, like the whole taxes thing. You know what I mean? And that's where a lot of guys get in trouble too as well. And it kind of like goes back to, guys afraid to ask questions. You know what I mean?
Don't want to see down.
Especially finances, man.
That's a real good point.
You know what I
it's
mean?
a lot easier for me to have these discussions one-on-one where, again, back to the trust thing, but you're getting in a position where, hey, I don't know shit about what we're talking about. Can you explain that concept to me? Because I don't even know what it is. Versus getting people in a room where they have expectations about what your money's supposed to be able to buy, and then they just don't ask questions.
Right.
When you go out there and make assumptions, and next thing you know, you got half of what you actually thought you were going to get, where you budgeted, to Fred's point, for 60 and you actually got 35. That's 45% of what you thought you were going to get. You know? And so it just constantly goes back for me to this education piece and the willingness to, or be the openness to hear people out that know what they're doing. Now, there's people that try to take advantage of others, but my whole MO has been just the purpose of explaining and educating this stuff to the best of my ability. I wasn't any different, man. I went to business school at Wake and everything. And I was like, what is a W-2? Which is from course.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I didn't know what a W-4 was that I need to fill out and what the opinions were and a W-2. And this is a guy from business school at West. So it's like, I don't know what I didn't know anything about that stuff at all.
Right.
And that kind of drives back into where this stuff all came from is like this, I had the desire to kind of want to help people through that same process. They had to go through that stuff, you know. I think those kids are a little bit smarter than we were. The smarter they get, the better I look, dude.
Yeah.
So let me ask you guys.
You've been looking real
you
good.
talked about
Yep.
your,
But
first
so no,
contract,
that's a
check.
big component that
Kind of break down, Pai. I want to
people,
start with
the humility, being willing to ask questions that you don't know answers to.
Yeah.
Usually comes when you trust in the person sitting across the seat from you. You know, that's been my experience. But,
Hey guys, can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you guys something. Kind of starting with Pai. You guys talked about your first check, how it was broken down, taxes, things like that. Pai, kind of give the audience kind of just a general breakdown, and definitely Fred and Des chime in on this. If a player gets a contract, first 3 years, they get an even $1 million a year. 3 years, $3 million. Kind of break down what that looks like realistically with taxes, fees, agents, all of these other things.
Well, a lot of times, Smitty, that's the misconception. If you sign like a 5-year, $15 million deal, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
People go 5 divided in 15 or 3 million, you know what I mean? But the NFL is not really geared like that. You know what I mean? A lot of times, a lot of your money you're going to make on the back end of it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So the first 1 or 2 years, you might get, the first year you might get like $750,000. Second year, it might bump up to, 1.9. Right? And then as the years goes on, you get more and more money kind of added on to equal up that 15 in the like towards the back end of your contract.
But then you
know
what
I mean?
happens
So
then,
a lot
Fred.
of contracts.
But you know what happened then?
Yeah.
If your ass ain't producing,
Yeah.
you ain't getting that back end money.
Yeah, you're not getting the back end money, or
Wow.
you're gonna get cut. You know what I mean? So that's how contracts are usually structured. A lot of people, oh man, how did he sign for this amount of dollars, this and that? Well, a lot of that is toward the back end. You know
Plus,
what I mean?
you're getting paid a base per game, right?
Yeah.
As I understand it, of the season, it's an allocation per game if you're playing. Is that accurate?
Not if you're playing.
Yeah.
If you're on the
Yeah.
team, like now it's 18 weeks. So let's just say somebody's making
Right.
$1.8 million. They'll get a $100,000 check every week. And that's only for those 18
Every
weeks,
week.
which is only a
Yeah.
third of the year. So you got to budget that money. And
Right.
that's what I had a hard time
what are you
doing
doing
early
the
on in
rest
my
of the year?
career. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my first
Yeah.
contract was 3
And then,
years, $900,000. And to try to budget that money throughout the year, like that was difficult for me to do. That was difficult for me to kind of grasp and understand, hey,
Yeah.
we got 17 weeks, but I got to make this last for 52 weeks and beyond until we start getting paid again, right? And that was my biggest challenge.
Then I think, as I understand it as well, you've got what they call the jock tax and things like that, where the taxation is different depending on what state you're playing in, things like that. So the actual take home is different if Fred is playing in New York versus if he's playing, in Miami, just based upon where he's literally playing. That money gets taxed differently. So it still doesn't necessarily equal out the same, and you have to be wary of, hey, what's the actual check I'm going to take home today based upon the state taxes in this area.
Yeah, and I learned that, my years, because you don't realize you pay taxes every game you play. So when you play them California games, you know what I mean? You getting that. You get that. Hey, I used to look at the schedule, see how many games we got on the West Coast. I got to get a couple extra tackles and sacks this game. Yeah.
Get some of them bonuses and incentives to kick in for them California games.
Yeah, man. Taxation's different out there.
Yeah. You play hard on the West Coast, buddy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, Kevin, when someone comes to me and we talk about those are the things I look at first, what's the actual structure of what you're doing? And then if we can place a discipline behind it, usually it's on a percentage basis versus like a dollar amount. So I'm not going to come to somebody and say, okay, we're saving $10,000 a month. I'm going to say, we're going to save 25% of whatever you're doing to go towards this, because the numbers differ so often. Yeah. It's too hard for me to tell. It's too hard to just say we're going to have this flat dollar rate that we're going to save every month. The checks differ too many times. So we just do it on a percentage basis instead. That's kind of the easiest way to do that. And then trying to explain how some of that stuff works is important. And then structuring the investments behind it. We always talk about asset location versus asset allocation. They're going to have opportunities to invest in retirement programs, pension plan, they're paying into that, et cetera. I think there's about 3 or 4 different programs, but nonetheless, you've still got, the excess that you need to have a discipline behind as you're managing that.
You talked about the pension programs. Man, here's the greatest thing about the NFL, the freaking 401k.
Mm-hmm.
Dude,
Yeah.
you can't go nowhere and get 2-to-1. Well, when we first started, and Fred, I think your first couple of years too, it was 1-to-1 match.
Yeah.
And then it went up to 2-to-1 match. And you could put
2-to-1,
whatever the maximum was in there, right? And so it was Rod Smith. Rod Smith out with the Denver Broncos. He came around. He was like, "Yo, stupid ass, better max out that damn 401k." And I was like, "All right." That was it.
Yeah.
And then every year I just maxed out my 401k just because Rod Smith cussed me out and called me stupid and told me that I better do it. So, but man, I think about that. That's free money. Like, I think when I first started, it might have been like $13,500 or something like that. But now you're getting another $13,500 on top of it. And then by the time I was in my 5th or 6th year, it was like $15,000-$16,000, and now it's 2-to-1. So you got to do that. And I used to ask the young players as I got older, "Hey man, you put money in your 401k?" And I said the same thing that Rod Smith said to me. "Yo, stupid ass, better put that money in that 401k."
Yeah. And I had that same meeting, man. I remember Scotty Graham, he used to work for the NFL, man. He used to come out there and tell us that, man, every training camp. But, I think that's the key, man. Like, it's hard for guys to really think about the future, right? A lot of guys, they want that money right now. You know what I mean? But you got to have that discipline. You know what I mean? And also, not just financial advice, you got to hang around the right type of people.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you see other guys, and I remember John Randall told me, when I was a rookie, say, "Listen, you're a rookie. You can't do things that guys been in the league been doing for 10, 11 years, right? Understand that. It's not a knock against you, right? But them pockets ain't like a 10-year vet pockets just yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so a lot of guys, man, try to live up to the Joneses, try to fit in. And that's what happened, when I went to New York. I went from a navigator on spinning reels, free rails. I had to get a Bentley. You know what I mean? It just, but it's experiences, man. And that's why I like, Pai gets real. Like, listen, I'm not gonna be so strict on you. You know what I mean? I want you to enjoy things, you know what I mean? But having that discipline, having somebody that you can have relations with that can really put their foot down and be like, look, here's what you need to do. You know what I mean? All jokes aside, you know what I mean? And that's where you have to have that type of relationship with whoever, man, is kind of helping manage things.
Yeah. So here's a question real quick, Kevin, that I got for Pai. Pai, can you put your foot down on somebody and be like, "Man, look at here. Hell no, it ain't happening." Pai, have you done that yet?
Yes. I mean, I'm not, you don't have to be a dick about it, you definitely, because here's what happens, like, shit happens. Like, they need money. They want money for this and that. So they got a shortfall this month, whatever. And so as you start sending them money from here and there, it's like you can see it starting to hemorrhage. You can see it starting to fall. And it's like, at some point, you made a vow to that person that you were going to protect their money. I'm like custodian of what they're trying to do, particularly when I know what the long-term goal is, right?
Right.
And so some point, you got to hit the stopgap, dude. And it's hey, man, we got to find a different
weak people, Pai. I had some weak people. I was like, no, give me my money back. When I was young, I need mine.
Telling you, that's the hardest thing to do. But I told them, like, look, you hired me as your advisor. You didn't hire me to agree with you, right? That's a big difference. It's like some people just want somebody that they can agree with. Like, if I contradict them, like, well, you're not being a good advisor. I'm like, you didn't hire me to agree with everything. If you were doing that, you could have done this yourself. You hired me to give you the best possible advice that I have at my disposal based on my experience in the last 24 years, right? Yeah. You're either going to go with it or you're not, but I'm going to tell you where we stand, I try to soften the blow. But you have to, man, because otherwise, here's what happens. They end up whittling through all the money and then come back and we go, where the fuck did it go?
And then it's your fault.
Dude,
it's your fault.
Yeah, it was my fault. At the end of the day, it's like, it's always we did a great job when this thing grows. And then what happened? Why did you do that when this thing falls, So that's a huge component of like that discipline we talk about.
Yeah.
So I try to communicate that shit up front as much as possible, right? Like, hey, here's what you're agreeing to. Here's what we're doing. This is what you wanted. So when we get a year down the road and you keep asking me for it, like eventually I'm going to say we need to start looking at some alternatives. But I'm also very good about trying to find some strategies that still allow them to get the best of both worlds. Sometimes it's just a matter of they haven't been exposed to opportunities or other strategies that make sense. And so just pulling it directly from the resources they've got.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of the job too, is being able to communicate all the other opportunities or all the other alternatives before we start dipping into the well.
So what would the three of you, you got a kid that's getting ready to get drafted in whatever sport, whether it's the WNBA, NBA, NFL, MLB, whatever. What advice would you give them from the three of you on how to establish a long career at the professional ranks? We'll start with you, Des.
Hell, pray. I don't care what you try to prepare to do.
100%.
I don't care what you try to prepare to do. I mean, it's always somebody coming behind you, right? And then you can get hurt. And I mean, it's all kind of, I mean, the politics, right? You say the wrong thing to the wrong person. But
what about you, Fred?
Like Dad said, man, pretty, everything ain't all peaches and cream how a lot of guys think it is. Just stay focused, like get better, work on your craft. One old baseball coach used to say, you got to expect that unexpected shit gonna happen. You know what I mean? And how do you deal with adverse things? It's gonna happen. You're not gonna get along with every teammate. It's a lot that they don't disclose on TV that goes on in their locker. But you got to have the strong will, strong mind to overcome all that. Look, you're gonna have fun, right? But a lot of other things that come with it.
Adversity, rejection, and no's, man. I've heard more no's in my life. All no's.
Yeah.
But that led to the right yeses, if that makes sense. So, like, all that adversity I went through, any rejection, like, people telling me I couldn't do it, I typically would get back up and go at it again. You know what I mean? One of the reasons I was able to actually travel with you guys to away games is because I would deal with people telling me no. I was a walk-on, man. So it's like, you aren't going to make it. You even do it out here. Yeah. And I loved it enough that I was willing to kind of fight through a lot of that junk and at least travel a little bit, Get on the field a couple of times too.
You passes too, Pai.
I got a couple of passes.
Yeah.
I did, no doubt.
I was watching a game, Pai, and I think it was against Clemson. And it was, I believe it was 97. We was playing Clemson at home. Yeah. You caught a pass in that game.
Yep.
Yeah.
How was that, Rudy? Man? I got it there. I don't even think I was supposed to be in the game. So I've got a couple passes, man. I'm telling you, like that was a huge deal for me. When I started playing football with you all, my only goal was to run out of the tunnel. That's how I started. That one single goal. And like people who just haven't played the game don't understand how much work goes into being able to run out of that tunnel.
But here's the thing about you, Pai. You work just as hard as anybody else, right? And that work ethic and being in that atmosphere just with everybody else, you didn't look at yourself as left to the end. You looked at yourself as part of the team. And being part of that team, a lot of that was you being on scout team and letting the defense beat up on you and just to get that just to get the defense ready to go, right? But through that whole development process of just being there, just like everybody else, you learn all the same lessons. Because there's going to be some people that's listening to this that's not going to be scholarship athletes, right? And just because you're not on scholarship, that don't mean that you can't get all the benefits of being on scholarship and all the lessons that you learn from being out there on that field and battling every single day, the relationships that you build, and then that determination of just playing team sport. And I feel like that's one of the reasons that we're all successful is because we had to go through that. And when we understand how to work with people, and we understand, like Fred was saying, people come from so many different places, but we develop that worldliness where we can get along with different types of people, as long as we can all corral each other and get together and pull from the same side of the road. I don't care where you come from. I don't care what your orientation is or, your color or this and that. Man, if we got to come and go, let's go get it. And I think that's something that as athletes, I'm partial to athletes. I think athletes are better people in general. I mean, judge me if you want to. I just feel like that because I just feel like we're exposed to more people, so we are more well-rounded on how to deal with people. So, man, just if any athletes are out here watching this thing and you're not on scholarship or you're on scholarship, man or woman, keep going and keep working hard because there's so many tangible benefits to doing what you're doing.
Yep. And was exactly my experience, man. I've been able to kind of have that translate well into my professional life. There's been plenty of adversity that's led to some really good opportunities, but looking rejection in the face, trying to use it as a learning opportunity and then bettering my craft has been really important, because there were plenty of times, to be honest with you, I could have given up. Really. I could have chose a different field, something else, and I don't get the money to me, somebody wants to leave, whatever. So that's probably been the biggest thing for me, is just continuing and moving forward.
You guys talk about continuing and moving forward, having the right people around you, and the NIL, name, image, and likeness on the college level, and in some states it's allowed on the high school level. That has put a lot of high school and college kids in a position of being professionals in one aspect in terms of managing those opportunities that come along we didn't have when we were in college. So kind of starting with you, Pai, when you look at the NIL and the opportunities that are there for young student athletes in particular, how do you see a company like Shark Jockey being a benefit for a young kid that is in a situation where they have an NIL opportunity?
Well, first of all, I came home in 97 and my friends were like, dude, you're on a video game. I'm on Bill Ross 97. They're like, these super fans on there. When did I sign that shit? I ain't seen $1 from that. They're all on some video games somewhere, man.
And it was when we were in school, Pi. It was when we were in school that the guys, I believe they played at UCLA of Missouri. They challenged the video game for using their names on the video games, and that was like the beginning of it, like
really?
97 or 98. Somebody had
Yeah.
lost.
It was 97.
You're talking about the O'Bannon brothers.
Yes.
O'Bannon played basketball at UCLA. They won a national championship, and they were on the video game, and that was the challenge, because I think he may have been at a car dealership when he was working full time when the lawsuit started. But yeah, that kicked in for a number of years, and that's why EA Sports pulled out producing the game.
Those games, because I mean, somewhere in one of those breakout rooms, I must have signed something.
It was when you went to pick up that sub sandwich. That's what it was.
But here's the thing, man. I mean, I think the opportunity for these kids to make money, they're such revenue drivers for those schools. I certainly agree with it. The biggest challenge with that is learning how to manage that resource. I can tell you too many horror stories where some kid gets a $100,000 check, spends a whole thing, and then comes back to me and says, hey, I got this bill from the IRS for $20,000. Where am I supposed to get that to pay it? I'm like, it was supposed to come from the $100,000, and so their understanding what the money means is just very, very limited. So Shark Jockey, the cool thing about what we're trying to do is several folds. One of it is when you get in this audience, when you're playing in front of people, being able to build that presence, you can use that as leverage to really scale your opportunity, whether it be getting in bed with certain brands, getting certain endorsements, things of that nature. Maybe it's a car dealership, I don't know. Whatever the case may be, the bigger your audience, the bigger the following, the more demand there is for you, the greater opportunity there is to monetize that, right? They've got that in a snapshot today. What they typically don't know thereafter is how to manage that resource. What's the business structure? An LLC, an S Corp, how do I put my retirement? Some don't even know how to think that way. I wouldn't have known how to think that way. So the idea is that if we can build that brand and then monetize that by leveraging their audience, we can in turn give them money or ways to subsidize their retirement from sports in perpetuity, right? And then with the right financial education, with guys like myself, being able to kind of talk them through that, hopefully they've got the right structure behind them to make good decisions with the right stewards.
So for Shark Jockey, for Shark Jockey, this is how I see it, Kevin. I was thinking about this the other day, and I was thinking about my kids and other kids, and we old as hell now, so like these young kids, they don't know what they're talking about. But I started to think, how many good kids out here, right, that listen to good parents actually end up in a bad place in life? Not many, right? Not many. So just think about Shark Jockey like this. We're an older generation. They got some younger people here on Shark Jockey also, but they've already been through it. And if you're a good athlete that is willing to listen to good advice, then Shark Jockey becomes the blueprint for whatever you want to get into, because there's so many walks of life here on Shark Jockey. I mean, you got football players here, but there's swimmers, there's tennis players, there's every walk of life of an athlete here that someone can look at and say, okay, that's the blueprint. And that's what I see Shark Jockey becoming for upcoming athletes. And then when athletes are able to transition, Shark Jockey is a platform to help them transition out of sports to whatever it is that they want to go into, because of the connections that Shark Jockey has all around the world with different disciplines of sports and business. So that's how I see how this platform can help athletes in a major way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, Shark Jockey, we've all made, right? Sometimes those are the teachers. You know what I mean? Like, learn from what other guys make, to be able to give you that knowledge. And here's what we know not what to do, right? And you talk about the NIL, grown men who can't manage money. Now these kids, 17, 18, 19 years old, and you giving them the same amount of money that grown adults have.
Right.
It's almost like if you giving your 50-year-old learn how to drive, you don't go buy them a Ford. Here you go, enjoy yourself. You know what I mean? You set them up for failure, right? And so that's where Shark Jockey comes in. Like, we have guys like this from all walks of life. We've all made mistakes. Those are some of our great features. We have every sport is covered. So these young kids can learn from some people who walk their walk.
Yeah. Now, Fred, Des, I've seen you guys lately, Des, with your logistics company, and also with you as a public speaker. You have always put out some great content, but lately it's just seemed to be a more intentional and purpose-driven edge to it. Fred, with you and your training, I saw that you pushed out a clip that was mashed together that kind of showed what you do. How important is it for you two, as you move into these spaces and but continue to grow as professionals in the business world? How important is it to establish a clear, crisp, and inviting brand in the digital space?
Well, I said it earlier, man. You gotta like them. People ain't come train if they don't get a likeness, a vibe with. You know what I mean? Yeah, I got the career and the stats. But I need you to like me. I don't need. We don't have to be best friends. I mean, I got a job to do. But it takes that enticing, and that's how young kids are driven now. They're driven on social media. Like, whereas old school guys, we built different. But I had to adapt, to the crowd who I'm trying to reach. Not be fake about it, but that's what it is. And that's how you attract, certain clients, certain people. That's what they look for, and we're in different places. I'm able to interact with people in different states. And so what we online versus a phone call, I got to sit up.
Yeah, man. Hey, I can only imagine if we had social media back in our day, right? First of all, y'all would have been over there at Salem State trying to videotape that massacre over there that y'all went to and take on the whole Winston-Salem State campus over there. That would have been all over the news. When Rufus got jumped by frat and everybody rushed over there, that would have been all on the news. When one day getting chased around campus by one of his many girlfriends, that would have been all on the news, because some would have been chasing him, trying to film it, trying to see oh man, we got to go get this. I wish we could relive them days on social media, but no, when it comes to social media, brand is everything. I want not only the young people to understand this, I want everybody to understand this. Brand is all about what your name means to you, and then what it's going to mean to everybody else. And think about it, you get to define that. And I would encourage everybody to define it authentically with who they are, because that's the easiest thing that you can do. And everybody has a story to tell. Everybody has a perspective that they can give. Everybody has something that they can offer to someone of value. They just got to understand what that is and what they can bring to the table. So social media gives us a platform. Oh man, if you're a star athlete, you have a brand like without even thinking about it. And all you got to do is develop it by being yourself, by being your authentic self, and understanding what your name to mean to yourself and what you want it to mean to everybody else, and what are you trying to gain from your name. And if you put those three things in place, now you just go out there and you create content behind that. And you, hey, that's Fred. I know Nick is working with you. I think he's working with you too, Kevin. That's the greatest value that I found here on Shot Jockey so far is Nick helping me to break down what do you want your company to mean, and then what are the six stories that you tell drive to the meaning of your company. And now let's tell those stories in different ways from different experiences that we have, and now people come to know you for being that.
Right.
Now, Pai, sort of the same question, but from a different angle as a guy in finance management. Let's say you got this young kid, superstar in high school, getting L deals. What should they start doing now that they're getting money at a much younger age? I mean, we all talking about making mistakes after college. So what about these kids and their money before they even step foot on the college campus?
I mean, the majority of what we do when we start getting kids with sizable checks is make sure we structure their business the right way. If you start making over $50,000, it's time for us to start talking about structuring an LLC and support for you, that you can take advantage of the tax efficiencies with it. There's a little more work involved, but that way you can start putting money away for yourself, get the tax deduction, all of a sudden $100,000 is still a good amount of money versus $100,000, getting spent and then you're paying $20-some odd thousand in taxes. So we try to find places to put that money away. Now, when you're that young, you're not really worried about retirement. So it doesn't all have to go into retirement vehicles by any means. I try to give people sexy ideas as to what they can do with it. Maybe they want to get rental income from an Airbnb, or maybe they want to invest in a business that makes sense. But we do that in a way where we're feeling our fiduciary responsibility then, where we're going to go out for investments that make sense. Some of these dudes, they're just flipping J's. They're out there buying up 6 pairs of Jordans and selling them for $2,000. Like, there are so many different ways to generate income right now for that group, right? For us, there's like, hey, you got to go to college and you go do this professional job and yada, yada, yada. Now they got 18 different revenues. You got, you can make money off of Instagram, or you can go sell Jordans or whatever. So what we try to do is give them the best amount of information to make the right decisions, structure their business. Even at an early age, you can do that.
Oh, they selling sneakers now? I got some Bobos from like 88.
Dude, I got stores where you can go in there and barter your J's. You can sell a used pair.
No,
come out with $70.
I don't have any J's. I got some Bobos, okay, from 88. They were like $12 back then. What can I get for them now? Hey, guys.
But to Desmond's point, the parents are what driving the ship. There's sometimes I've tried to talk to some of these kids and they'll hear me, but they're not listening. But I get the parents behind them giving me the and that makes sense. And we want to do that. And all of a sudden, little Johnny's ready to go, right? So that's
another
big
thing,
push.
Little Johnny don't got the time to focus on that. He's focusing on school and sports and stuff. So, man, somebody who got some good parents behind them, that's a major advantage.
Yeah. So to y'all's point earlier, if we can provide mentorship for those guys in lieu of parents that may not be available, incredible. I think that's awesome. With Fred, his platform where he's at, working with these dudes, his ability to get in front of these guys that are still 20, 21, 22, be a steward for what they're doing, not only as they reach the NFL, but with the rest of their literacy as it pertains to finances, other things you're doing in the classroom with them. I mean, all that stuff, dude, all that stuff is so important. So he is in a mentorship role. Desmond's in a mentorship role. So even though we might not be parents, so to speak, being able to provide that mentorship for kids that trust you, of course, is going to be huge.
Mm-hmm. Hey, guys, I know everybody's got to run. I appreciate you guys stopping by, taking time to spend with us, Short Jockeys Behind the Pro podcast, to share your experience and transitioning what you guys are doing now. We're going to have you back, spend some time, get to know you guys, tell your story in a little bit more in-depth way. But again, appreciate you guys coming by.